Welcome, everyone. It's very, very exciting to see some familiar faces and some new faces. Wow. Dear people and new people and people who have been with us at NVC Rising for the past 4.5 years and people who have been part of my personal journey actually for the past 15 years. Hi, Alberta. um, I welcome you all to this event of us, NVC Rising, hosting the Phoenix Plan. I'm very touched, actually, to have, I guess, some sort of like an intersection between a program I was part of 14 years ago and an initiative that I'm currently running. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bonnie and I'm part of the NVC Rising team. I'm based currently in Israel and Palestine. And nonviolent communication is where my heart is. And Israel and Palestine is actually also where my heart is. Physically and I guess emotionally also, mentally. And we decided to host this event and invite the Phoenix Initiative because of the, or maybe you can mute if you're not me, or maybe some of the co-hosts, you could help me see who needs to be muted now. I'll try this. Okay.
Ajde, probaj još jedan put sa jednom i pol.
Maybe Tarek, you could help me.
Na više.
Okay. Maybe we can mute all and then unmute me. Okay, I think now it's better. I don't know if it was only distracting for me, but I kind of guess that it might have been also distracting for you. So welcome again. We still have people coming in. It's very, very touching and exciting for me to see how much interest there is for the Phoenix Plan and for this initiative, and how much people are curious to hear more and to explore more and to engage in their work. And I will repeat a little bit what I said in the last few minutes for those who are just joining us. I had the privilege 14 years ago to be part of the New Story Leadership Program for the Middle East. I was part of a delegation in Washington, D.C. of 5 Israelis and 5 Palestinians who came together to D.C. to tell their stories and to have the people in D.C. hear their experiences of living in the region of Israel, Palestine, and experiencing the reality that we have been experiencing, actually, over the many years that we've been living. Wait a moment. Okay. We are hosting this event while a terrible war is still going on. And I want to also just take a moment to acknowledge that and to acknowledge all the people who lost so much during the past, how is it, 15 months, I guess. And our intention is to be here all together and care for this. And for me, hosting the Phoenix Plan is part of caring for the future of the people who keep losing, being involved in the war that is going on in Palestine and Israel. I guess I will not say so much more, and I will soon hand the mic to Caroline, the executive director of the New Story Leadership Program, and she could make another opening and give a little bit more background and help us frame the next hour and a half.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all for coming in, and for you, Caroline, Tarek, Abir, and Gali, for speaking today, and for all the people who joined us from all around the world. Actually, I also invite you to maybe write in the chat where are you joining us from, and maybe one more technical thing before I hand it to you, Caroline. In our experience, sometimes the chat tends to kind of open us like a lot of side conversations, and we will have a Q&A section where we would really love to take questions from you and to try to answer them. So I'm going to put now in the chat a link to a document that we called the parking lot. If you have a question that you would very much would like us to engage with, please write your question in the parking lot. So now I see people are starting to write in the chat where they are joining us from. I will just read a little bit. Yeah, United States, Switzerland, Virginia, Canada, Istanbul, Istanbul. A few people from Istanbul, Hungary. Wait, Washington DC, the UK, Tehran, Iran, United Kingdom, Lithuania, Los Angeles, New York City, Jordan, France, Jerusalem, Ireland, Kenya, Germany, Iran, India, Australia, Paris, Germany, Israel, Palestine. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us from all around the world. So I'm going to put the parking lot link in the chat, and I really welcome you to write comments and write questions over there. And I'm going to hand it to you, Caroline. Everything that I actually didn't say, please say it now.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, Goni, for that very comprehensive introduction. And really, thank you for creating this space for us to share the Phoenix Plan with your nonviolent communications community. This is really special for us. And we're so proud to call you an alum of the New Story Leadership Program and to see this space that you've created. It really is inspiring. And thank you to everyone who are joining us. I mean, we have a very global community. It really warms my heart that you are spending this hour and a half with us today. You know, and in times of such darkness, like really, your presence really does mean the world. So I look forward to sharing the incredible work of our Palestinian and Israeli alumni and hope to inspire you to become part of the journey with us. So as Goni mentioned, my name is Caroline Mays. I am the Executive Director of New Story Leadership. And New Story Leadership is a program that has been around since 2009. And our flagship program is we bring 10 outstanding Israeli and Palestinian young leaders to Washington, D.C. Each summer for 2 months. They live together in DC, they work together on Capitol Hill, advocate together for jointly jointly negotiated proposals, and they advocate together on Capitol Hill and are trained by DC's best. Now, our motto at New Story Leadership is don't talk about us without us. There are so many conversations that are had and so many policies that are made that do not include the end receiver of said conversations and policies. So our motto really does underscore our commitment to including those who are directly impacted by these critical conversations with policymakers and you know, engaging with these influential audiences throughout DC. So we use the tool, the method of storytelling as a way for education and advocacy. Now, October 7th and the war in Gaza changed everything for our community. We were devastated. And in the immediate aftermath, we contacted all of our alumni to check on their safety and their well-being and offered support in any way that we could. Now, many of our alums were obviously deeply in pain, retreated to their corners and drew up the drawbridge. However, a small group of 10 decided to move forward together. They are Jewish Israelis, they are Palestinian citizens from Israel, as well as Palestinians from Gaza, East Jerusalem, and the West Bank. Weeks after the attack, or a week after the attacks, our alums were one of the first groups to come together to issue a joint statement calling for a ceasefire and for the release of all hostages. New Story leadership arranged meetings throughout our congressional network in order to elevate our alumni voices for them to urge members to stop the war. And that was just the beginning, and our alumni did not stop there. So our alumni recognized that in order to put an end to the bloody status quo, a fundamentally new approach would be required once the fighting eventually stops. They decided to write their version of a Marshall Plan. They spent months identifying primary roadblock issues. They researched and consulted with experts to understand how leaders from around the world have tackled other seemingly intractable conflicts, learning both from their successes and failures. Then NSL flew all 10 of these alumni to Geneva for a week of intense and challenging negotiations with each other. And so what emerged was the Phoenix Plan, which is a comprehensive and holistic set of principles, processes, roles, and responsibilities that will fundamentally change the trajectory of the region once the fighting stops. In this plan, they describe 5 major areas of opportunity, which they recognize as holding the potential of changing regional dynamics and prompting a reality more conducive to peace. These areas of opportunity are Gaza reconstruction, the first. The second is Israeli and Palestinian governance. The third is the role of accountability and restorative justice. 4 is the role of the international community. And 5 is preparing the public for peace. Now you can find the executive summary and the full 70-page, it's a 70-page document, on our website, which is newstoryleadership.org. Now I'm going to turn it over now to Tarek Masrani. Tarek is, very closely involved with the nonviolent communications community, but is also a seasoned peace builder in his own right and was our facilitator in Geneva. And then subsequently, we have 2 members of our Phoenix drafters with us who will also present. So Tarek, I'd like to turn the mic over to you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Everyone can see me. I spotlight myself. So welcome. It's a delight. I think this might be the 5th or 6th NVC Rising event that I've gotten to participate in. Thank you, Goni, Racheli, and all of the others in the back who are making this possible. I'm especially excited because this sort of finds me at the convergence of 2 things I'm very passionate about, the NVC piece and the Phoenix Plan, which we'll get into. So I'm going to just say a few words from an NVC perspective. The process that we went through to come up with the Phoenix Plan certainly utilized some of the techniques that you might be familiar with if you've been studying NVC in the midst of conversations we were having, conflicts we were having, such as in Geneva, and working things through. So things about trying to identify underlying needs, acknowledging the feelings that are in the room, unpacking the observations behind interpretations that were being made, finding different strategies that might be able to satisfy and support a variety of different needs once they're identified. All of those things were part of it. But what I wanted to tell you is that NVC was not an explicit part of the dialogue. It was not something I talked about. There wasn't a training for the participants, the 10 drafters of the process. In fact, I'm guessing that most of the 10 are not even aware of what NVC is, if they've even heard about it before. But what did happen in the room was so much in keeping with the spirit of NVC. And what I mean by that is that through this process where we're coming together months after October 7th, Palestinians and Israelis came into the room and were able to be seen for what they experienced, for what mattered to them, for their particular perspectives, for what they cared for, and also for the gifts that they could bring into that room, the various perspectives, skills, life lessons, career sort of insights that they had. We had from teachers to social media bloggers, folks who had served in the IDF, knew about military strategy or knowledge and technologies, others who knew about social policy. And that is really what captured in that room, for me, the spirit of NVC. And it was in that sense of connection that we were able to foster, likely because people knew each other, likely because people were drawn together by a common dream of making something, doing something meaningful out of a time of complete despair and crisis. But out of that sense of connection, there was a space created where together we could look at the various systems of power that we were all embedded in, including looking at the powers within our communities, within Israeli and Palestinian societies, the problems that were there, and we're able to critique them. We're able to look at the norms, the institutions, the structures, and dissect them and start to think about solutions to address those. And that is where the shift came from us being against each other as Palestinians and Israelis in the room and a facilitator trying to manage that, to us being together with each other and looking at the system with which the systems within which we were we were participating, and figuring out how together we can come up with ways to address them. And that's those 5 areas of opportunities really are 5 systemic obstacles that has kept the Middle East from coming up with a sustainable and permanent negotiated peace. And I'll say it wasn't just the Israeli-Palestine issues that came up. There were issues of gender in particular that we needed to address that were live in the room. So with that, I now want to pass it to Abir to share her personal story leading up to the events of October 7th.
Thank you, Tariq, and hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. It's really weird for us now to think of life before and after October 7th, and like being asked to speak of my life up until October 7th. It's just like, it feels like, wow, when was that? And I'm sure many in the room share the same feeling. This is a very common pain for most of us, if not all of us here. So first of all, my name is Abir. I'm like skipping introduction. So my name is Abir. I'm based in Nazareth. I'm a Palestinian citizen of Israel. Growing up with this mixed, not easy identity in Israel, and yet feeling the need to connect to my Palestinian identity, and then being in contact with people, both Jewish Israelis and Palestinians, whether from Israel or the West Bank or Gaza, was always something that changed the course of events and the way I see things. And one of my very first sentences that craved something in my head as a little kid was hearing from different people, from different identities here in Israel, Palestine, saying, I don't feel safe. I've never felt safe in my own home. And that is something that I also like share the same feeling, and it's something you don't wish on anyone. Like, home is where your heart is supposed to be, is where you're supposed to feel the most safe ever. And yet, because of the political situation, because of the social situation, most of us couldn't feel this. And that's when I told myself that I want to do something about it. I decided I want to go into peace building. I studied international relations. I was part of several movements that bring Israelis and Palestinians together. And yet, to be honest, never felt that we're making an impact on like a bigger level. It was always very grassroots. It took me time to understand also from my studies that this is how it all starts. You need to you need to plant the first seed and keep working to see how all of that emerges later. But to be honest, this path, let's say, hasn't been easy, and not before October 7th, and definitely not after. And also the fact that many people now say, okay, just take me back to October 6th because things were kind of better. We do believe in the Phoenix plan drafters and NSL that, and also my personal experience really makes that very clear, that we cannot go back to the status quo. We cannot go back to October 6th. And what we're looking for is something new, something different, something that we all deserve, that we all can work for, which is to live in, to have justice, to live in peace, and to feel safety, that you won't hear from a 5-year-old telling you, I don't feel safe, or from an 80-year-old telling you that I've never felt safe in my own country. We usually do things through stories in New Story Leadership, and that is one of the things that can always attract people to also feel the feeling of each other. But today, I just feel like speaking casually to you. I feel like there's a lot to share. I'm gonna stop here because I know we have more time to talk about this later. But we'll be happy to answer anything specific.
Gali, we'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Gali. I'm a Jewish Israeli. I was born and raised in Jerusalem. I'm currently still live in Jerusalem. I think I will start a bit with my background of how I got into this world of activism. So I think, like any other person that lives here, my life is embedded with the conflict. I just never really realized it until, well, for me, the turning point was in the army. As some of you might know, the military in Israel is mandatory. We have to go. I was drafted when I was 18. It was back in 2017. I was in the IDF spokesperson. I was a reporter for the army, especially for the Navy. And I think that was the first time for me where I started questioning what I was taught and my narrative. It was, I think it was summer. I was at a Navy base in Ashdod. It's the Navy base that is right up from Gaza. They're basically in charge of the marine borders of Gaza. And it was there when I first witnessed an incident of a IDF soldier shoots down a Gazan fisherman. Later, just to say that they thought he was a terrorist, but apparently he just sailed his boat a bit farther away from the borders that the IDF is usually giving the Gazans to fish. So that for me was the first time I kind of had my eyes open with this incident. As a reporter, I thought it was my duty to report on it, which was a bad idea. Apparently, it's not what you're supposed to do as army reporter, and it eventually one thing led to another, and I got out of the army because of this incident. And I think that kind of started my long journey with trying to understand the full picture and to understand that there's so much more than what I know and what people around me know. And there's a whole narrative out there that I never heard of at all. So that's how I eventually got to NSL last year, where I met Abir and many other great activists, both Palestinians and Jewish Israeli. And on October 7, it really did change everything. Personally, I was involved back then in a project in the West Bank. But during October 7, I was in my home in Jerusalem, a lot of my friends went to the Nova party. It started on October 6th, and I thought about maybe joining Friday night, or even if I'll come Saturday morning to the party. Eventually, I didn't go, and Saturday morning we already received the news, though it was very hard to decipher what's really happening. It took weeks to understand what really went down there, but I think it was clear from the first moment that it's not a place you want to go to now. And I think for me, that was another pivotal moment. I think in this little speech, I kind of highlighted two big moments for me. And the first was the army, and the second was this day, this party. My friends that never came back from that party, they were the victims that could have been saved. And I think for me, that was what made me realize that we are, Abir and I, and the other people in our team, we are on the right track, because I understood that day that only peace can bring real security, that constant war will only bring constant war, and then innocent people are going to be dragged into it. And the only way to stop this is to try and reach a solution between those two people without ego and without revenge and violence like we see today. I wonder how much time more do I have? Tarek, can you keep me
Yeah, I'd
in
say
check?
if you can wrap up, and then we'll come
Okay.
back to the next questions.
So basically, a couple of months after October 7, Abir and I, and I think it was 7, 8 other people from our program, we got to Geneva, where we decided we need to come up with a plan to end this. And I think it's something that I wouldn't have done, maybe not as passionately, if it wasn't for October 7, because that day made me realize that I need to do whatever I can in order to save my friends and family, because I can't save the one that already died, but I can try to do my best for those that are still alive. I think I will stop there. I'll hand it back to Tarek.
Okay, thanks, Gali. And let's go back to Abir.
Yes, so October 7th, a day I think none of us would like to remember or think about. But truth is, in the moments of despair, in the moments of the real pain that we all felt, it was a moment where I personally, as a person who's been involved in social justice and peace building and nonviolent communication movements and initiatives for like 10, 12 years, I told myself, that's it. I can't. My mental health, is on the edge. It's like there's a lot, there's way too much to grasp. And then Caroline and the team from New Story Leadership reached out to us, asking how we're doing and asking what we feel like we want to do. And that was the moment when I reminded myself that you cannot, waste all the effort you've done, and you cannot even like thinking about the people who lost their lives on October 7th and in the aftermath of it. That shouldn't be gone like that and continue the cycles. So I was like, I'm in. Whatever you're thinking about, I'm in. I'm ready to take part. It wasn't that easy in the beginning, to be honest. As most of you know, it was almost impossible for us to even post something online. I have many friends who were jailed for writing something like "All children deserve to live." I had family members who were also kicked out of university or their jobs for liking a post on social media. And that was scary. I mean, for everyone, we're all also trying to, you know, live and go by our daily lives and just have a job and a normal life. That was very scary. But at the same time, I'm very grateful for the team that was very supportive and that didn't stop us from actually working towards something. So as Gali mentioned, we met in Geneva, and it was different people from different NSL groups. So I was basically in year 2015, and some others were like from year 2020 or 2022. So I didn't know most people. But the very first time we met and we started talking, it's always a reminder how our pain and our experiences, despite being so different, they are very similar. And being put there together, and as Tariq mentioned, we didn't even discuss nonviolent communication, but it was just a way for how we discussed things, for how we shared everything we're going through, and how we started writing. And now we talk about it like, yeah, we wrote a 70-page document, but that wasn't a smooth process. It wasn't that easy. We needed the great facilitation skills from Tariq and Caroline and the other team members. We all came with a lot of feelings and emotions, and that sometimes, you know, stops the actions and the thoughts from being too clear. But the fact that we did manage to do that together, and thinking always in like the motto of New Story Leadership, don't talk about us without us, and seeing that this is one of the reasons why we've been put through this all our lives, that basically everyone and literally everyone in the world thinks they know what's best for Israel Palestine. And we felt it was time for us, for people on the ground, for people living this, to actually share what we're going through and to actually be the ones who come up with what we envision, what would be fair. Now, it's not easy. We're talking about tens of years of injustice. We're not talking about one war. So going through this process together, I would say, even though it wasn't easy, but it was something that we now look at and we're all very, very proud of. And to be able also to discuss this here today with many of you who are also in the field and who understand this matter also helps us continue doing this. And what really matters is that the Phoenix Plan is a living, breathing document. We're still working, we're still changing things, we're still adding things. As Caroline and Tariq mentioned, we're also working on a gender perspective that also needs to be there for both Israelis and Palestinians. So it's a lot of work, but it's something that feels, especially now that we're doing something with a purpose, if I may say. Like I personally, I still do that in my everyday job. I still do that in everything. Gali is also an activist in different movements. We're still trying, but with NSL, with the Phoenix Plan, we're putting things like, when you write something, when you agree on something, coming from all the different experiences, it was something very very empowering for us, that we're very proud of, and we're ready to continue this journey despite all the difficulties. Tariq, I take it back to Gali.
Let's now dig into the 5 areas of opportunity within the Phoenix Plan. Just a quick, I'm guessing there's some curiosity at what they are, what they mean. So a quick summary. Gali, would you start us off?
Yes, and feel free to jump in any minute to add on to that. So, like we said, the whole idea of the Phoenix Plan was, how can we write a plan to something that no one has a plan to, and the plans that are on the table now, none of them has been written by both Palestinians and Jewish Israelis. Like Abir said, they're all written by people living abroad. That our joke was, it was written by Americans who visited Israel back in the 80s one time, And our purpose is to create something that is holistic in a way that we understand the complexity, and still we also understand that it doesn't mean that there's no solution. The fact that it's complex doesn't mean it's a dead end. So basically we divided it into 5, soon to be 6 parts. I can talk about the first part. The first part is rebuilding Gaza. We all understand that the most burning issue. Oh God, I hear an echo. The most pressing issue right now is Gaza and the destruction in Gaza, and the fact that there's hundreds of thousands of people dead and uprooted. So the first issue that we talk about, because we understand it's inherent for the rest of the plan, is the rebuilding of Gaza. So I can say in like tiny little points that one of them is to take people from Gaza, that they should take an active part in the rebuilding of the place. It shouldn't be only an act of the outside. Another part is that there should be an accountability by Israel and by other countries around in the Middle East. We understand that it's going to be a long process and a very expensive one, but we also understand we can't do anything. No one can do anything without this first part being completed. So, for example, I talked about people from Gaza taking active part in it. So people in Gaza have a lot of experience with amputees. How can we take this knowledge, and how can they take this knowledge for their advantage? Or, for example, rebuilding with rubbles from all the explosions. We understand there's a lot of knowledge there that should be tapped into when rebuilding Gaza. You want to take the next one, or should we do it?
Abir, maybe you can
Sure.
talk about governance in the Palestinian context.
Sure. So our second area of opportunity in the Phoenix Plan is responsive governance, and we talk about responsive governance both in Israel and in Palestine, believing that unfortunately the leaders today and our governments and the whole governance system is not really ready to be there for the next steps. So we talk about establishing governance that is representative, that is transparent, to be accountable, to meet the needs of both Palestinian and Israeli populations. We're talking about reduced corruption, of course, and increased public trust in governance, democratic participation and representation. For Palestine, for example, what's interesting, what we tried to come up with something that works, was that we envisioned this as a first step two-state solution. We're talking about a Palestinian government that in the beginning can be a transitional one with experts that can be locally led. That is something very important. Can be Palestinians from all over Palestine, including Palestinian citizens of Israel, as well as a committee of experts from whether international factors or other Arab countries. And for Israel, we also discuss governance that is also responsive, that has strengthens institutions that provide transparent services. We're also talking about new leadership. The third, should I do the third, Tariq?
That'd be great.
The third area of opportunity in the Phoenix Plan is accountability and transitional justice, where we basically talk about creating mechanisms to address past injustices, hold perpetrators accountable, ensure justice and reconciliation, by establishment of truth, of reconciliation processes. We talk about accountability for violations of human rights, as well as societal healing and acknowledgement of past suffering for both sides. And that is something very important for us to be able to come back and try something new. We do need to acknowledge the past suffering, as well as work on transitional justice. The fourth one, I'll give it to Gali, international
I
community.
can glance over super quickly. The fourth one in the international community, basically, we understand that there's going to need to be a big part of the international community in rebuilding of this, in arriving, in reaching peaceful resolution. Yet we highlight that we don't want the international community to be the architect. We are the architect. We expect the international community to be the midwife of this plan. I can also maybe also say a few words about the nonviolent communication. No, actually, I'm going to finish it up with a fifth area, and then we're going to talk about it. So the fifth area of opportunity is preparing the public for peace. This part is actually a part that's been missing from every other plan that has been written out there. Basically, we understand that peace is such a problematic word, both in Israel and Palestine, where I grew up in Israel post-95 after Prime Minister Rabin was murdered. This word hasn't been said, and if it was used in connotations of loss and compromise. And what we want to do is to reframe it as win-win. So I wonder how deeper we want to go into details, or should we? I think I will say a few words about how we even decided on these 5 areas of opportunity. After October 7, things were hectic for everybody. And for Jewish Israelis and Palestinians to meet at the time was almost impossible. Not only mentally, because it was so emotional, but also physically. The borders, the West Bank is still closed till this day. People there can't get in and out of Israel. So the only place where we could meet was Geneva. But that didn't mean that we had very clean and easy way of coming up with this plan. It took a lot of very gentle facilitation with Tarek, of understanding how can we communicate what we want and feel in a way that is not accusing the other side or victimizing, or just how can we bring this passion that we all have to fruition in a way that other people can listen to, which I think talking about this topic, it's something that is almost impossible. In my house, we don't talk about politics, never, because we know that it can get to like huge fights. So to be able to sit with Palestinians and come up with this plan, I think that was a huge, like the communication itself was such a huge part of how can we even talk to one another. And Tarek, if you want to add on to that.
Thank you, both Gali and Abir. I want to say a few words just about that process and the outcome, and then talk about what we did with the document, because so the document drafting or structuring piece in Geneva, that was a week of us coming together. That was preceded by weekly calls of coming together around the areas of opportunity and educating ourselves on those different areas. On what does governance mean? What are the major topics, themes, concept, ideas? We would invite people who are experts on each issue and go through it and then apply it to the local context. Then we met in Geneva. Every day we would talk about one of those areas of opportunities. We would take fastidious notes on what everyone was saying. And as you can imagine, a lot came out, reams and reams of notes came out. And we would actually use ChatGPT to organize those notes into clusters, to summarize them, and then use the beginning of the next day to go through what was organized and to see if out of that we can draw out consensus themes and ideas that we would put into the actual document. And we did that over the course of that week together. We also, while we were in Geneva, we met with various different agencies within the UN system, UNRWA, the World Health Organizations, and learned about the Swiss form of federal government governance, just to sort of inspire us along the way. That by no means ended in a document. It was from there months later that we were drafting different sections of the document based on these notes that artificial intelligence helped us to organize, and bouncing those around. And it was only over months that the Phoenix Plan, now in its second version, a revision that we made, but came into shape. But it was to go back to the spirit that I mentioned before, that spirit of acknowledging each one of us, of our experiences, perspectives, pain, fears, dreams. I think that really shows up in the document. It shows up in the principles section of the document, where we talk about everyone who's close to the pain, their needs need to be centered. It shows up in the place of the document where we acknowledge that everyone has a special connection, an ancestral connection to the land and to the people that they are a part of.
Recording in progress. Oriented from within
So,
general systems theory.
all right, thank you. So with that said, I want to hand it over now to Caroline to talk about what happened once we had this document in place, which we will share with you. What did we do with that?
Caroline, we need to unmute you. Let's see. Because
I
okay.
think 5 years after COVID, I would know by now. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for that, Tarek. That was a great rundown of the Geneva process. So as I mentioned, New Story Leadership typically does a summer program. This summer, we ran a summer program, but it was very non-typical from what we normally do. So instead of bringing new delegates during wartime, New Story Leadership brought back the Phoenix Plan NSL alumni authors to Washington, D.C. to basically roll out the plan and test the waters with U.S. decision makers and engage reactions to the plan. And during the months that they were here, they met with over 25 congressional members and offices, State Department representatives, ambassadors from 3 key foreign nations, think tanks, congregations of many faiths, and audiences at 5 U.S. universities. And the reaction to the plan was actually beyond our expectation. Support was actually quite broad and enthusiastic. A number of members of key congressional staff indicated an interest in exploring the development of a Phoenix caucus up on Capitol Hill. Our meeting with State Department official, specifically the department that is tasked with Gaza recovery, described the Phoenix Plan as by far the most comprehensive document that they had seen, and the only one at that point that had been drafted by Israelis and Palestinians. And they said it's very clear by actual stakeholders that they're taking it very seriously. In November, actually, the Phoenix Plan received formal endorsement from the Alliance for Peacebuilding, which is a nonpartisan network of 200 plus organizations working in 181 countries to end violent conflict and build sustainable peace. And NSL at the end of the summer and since then has walked away with invitations to present the plan in numerous world capitals, as well as to the EU and Brussels. So in this coming April, as we mentioned earlier, we will be flying to Dublin and to Belfast. We will be learning from the women in the peace process that worked in Northern Ireland, because we want to, our goal is to draft a 5th area of opportunity, focusing specifically on the role of women in peace building and conflict resolution from an Israeli-Palestinian lens. So that will take place in April 2025. And then this summer, we will have a summer program that is slightly modified, but it will be an NSL program, but that will have a Phoenix Plan advocacy lens to it. So.
Thank you, Caroline. So we have a parking lot for questions that has been live and active, that I'm tracking here. It's a separate Google Doc, and Maybe we'll send that link back into the chat for those that missed it. And there are a number of questions there. A number of them we will take, we will address actually later on the session. So I'm going to skip those. And we do have more that we want to talk about. So I'm going to put aside 10 minutes to look at some of these questions. We'll start with some on the parking lot, and then if there's time, we may take some more live questions in the audience. So, so one question is, how does this plan link with other groups? In other words, maybe how does the plan, is there some sense of coordination with other efforts that are happening out there? Do any of you want to address that? Maybe Caroline?
Sure. Yeah, so actually one of the activities that we had this past summer was with the U.S. Institute for Peace, and they had organized a roundtable, and the intention was to bring together drafters of different post-war plans to basically kind of put our heads together. What could we learn and whatnot? And so our group did a ton of research. And what's been interesting is that there is definitely overlap. And we've been connecting with different groups because our plan is so comprehensive. We've been connecting. There's one group that is called what is it called, Tarek? Palestine Emerging.
Oh, Palestine Emerging.
Palestine Emerging, which is a Palestinian-led economic effort on how to, Palestinian-led reconstruction of Gaza. So that very much aligns with one of our key areas. There's other people that we've partnered with. So because it is so comprehensive, there are plans that fall within certain frameworks. And so there hasn't been, this would actually be one of our ultimate goals, is to create some sort of framework where you can pinpoint exactly where you fit in what need. And I don't know if Gali or Abir have anything they want to add to that.
So I
Yeah,
have a few things. Oh, okay, you do. Good.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
All right, I'll go first. Abir, you follow me. Yeah, and I posted all the questions that sort of are on a similar wavelength into the chat, and I want to touch on a few of them. So one is in doing what we call doing our homework, the many sessions we had, experts we got, drafting the plan. You'll find in the plan that it's replete with references to other initiatives, to other plans that already existed, case studies from around the world as well as from the Middle East. And we really took this approach that we don't want to be something unique and different. We actually want to sort of be a connective tissue amongst the many existing issues, efforts that have already taken place beforehand. And so there were a number, and one of the comments, a number of groups that were raised there, Standing Together, Parent Circle, Combatants for Peace, Tahrir, Ali Abu Awad, Sami Awad, Holy Land Peace Trust. And so what I would say is, where we found ways to reference them, we did. And now in our work since then, we have been sharing the document with all of those organizations and many more in an effort for them to have an extra tool, an extra reference in their work, particularly when these peace-building organizations and advocacy organizations face constant, like, well, what can we do? And here they can act, at least for our plan, they can say, well, here's one example of what five Palestinians were able to come up with that addresses in a comprehensive way many of the systemic issues we're facing. So we're against this, but here's something we can be for, right? And that gives them something to work with as well. And the last thing I wanted to say is on the accountability piece, as that's as a content area, that's where I brought in insights around restorative justice and transitional justice. I've lived in South Africa, and we looked at the South African mechanisms for transitional justice. They're mentioned in the section on transitional justice in there. But we didn't just look at South Africa as well. Many other efforts are out there, including efforts within Israeli and Palestinian society and religious and cultural traditions. Abir, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just had one comment about the reaching out to other organizations and initiatives. One of the in my eyes very impressive things, let's say, about our team and about the way we see things is that we believe that this work isn't exclusive and it should not be. And that is something very important because we do need everyone. We do need as many people as possible who believe in the same thing, because we're kind of a minority. It's hopefully changing, but that is one of the things that are very important, that we are aware of that. It was very important for us to research, and I remember like we spent a day or two really just researching and writing all the other documents. And then, as Caroline mentioned, we had a meeting with some of the drafters. We did discuss this, and it was very interesting for them to see the amount of work and the quality of the document we've put together. And also because, as you know, Israel Palestine, we're talking about a small community when it comes to people who are peace builders. So almost each and every one of us is involved with one of the other initiatives. So it was also very easy to connect and to put also the Phoenix plan on the front line, and for people to be aware of and to use, because we didn't do all of this work just, you know, to archive the document. We want as many people as possible to read it and to share it as well. And that was very important for us.
Okay, thank you, Abir. So I wonder if we can, we're at the top of the hour, and I think we have another about half an hour scheduled. I think we have a number of more questions, but we also have this digital deliberation piece, which is part of the conversation. And so what I suggest we do is we move forward with that piece of it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what digital deliberation means, and then I'm going to introduce you to a tool, and we're going to actually try it all together. For 5 minutes or so, a group of 88 people are going to have a digital conversation, and you're going to see some of the power as well as some of the limitations of what that kind of tool has, and why we consider the digital deliberation tool something that we're building off of and expanding the Phoenix plan with. So it was actually during our Geneva conversations that the idea of using some kind of digital tool came up to be able to expand the reach of the Phoenix plan, the idea of the Phoenix plan, get feedback into the Phoenix plan, and so forth. Some of us, including Caroline and I, have been part of an emerging community that have been organized by the Council on Technology and Social Cohesion, that is looking not only at the ways that technology, such as social media technologies, are creating conflict, but also looking at and how that needs to be mitigated, but also at the ways that technologies can help create cohesion and address conflict. And it is through those conferences and meetings that we've come upon two different platforms known as Polis and Remesh that essentially allow you to have large-scale, real-time, or asynchronous conversations with thousands or tens of thousands of people together in a way that allows people to express their perspectives, but also respond to other people's perspectives. And at the back end, a supercomputer to take all of that and help us understand the nuance of public opinion around any given issue. It's with this technology that we became very excited about, well, what if we actually engaged in some kind of large-scale digital deliberation so that we're not just hearing the most polarized voices around this issue, so that we actually get into what's happening in the middle and where's the common ground. We learned that in Northern Ireland, the peace process really didn't sink in until there was public opinion polling done in collaboration with the rulers of the militant factions who agreed to have their constituencies polled. And that after those polls that they trusted, because they were part of creating them, came back and showed them that the majority of people actually wanted integrated schools. The majority of people wanted the arms to be turned in. The majority of people didn't mind living in mixed neighborhoods. It was only then that the Good Friday Accords could happen. And so in a similar vein, we thought about, well, what if we were able to show that there's common ground, that we can't, more common ground that we can see? And there's already traditional polling that suggests that there is common ground that we're just not able to see, especially not on social media. So that's the idea behind it. We chose to run with Remesh, which is a very sophisticated AI-powered platform to be able to have those kinds of conversations. But today we're going to have a conversation with Polis, using Polis because it's quite simple to get started, to run in a brief way. So I'm going to put the link here, and I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Okay, so you should be able to go to this link. And before you do anything, let me just explain very quickly what you're looking at. Okay. You should see in the shared screen, you should see what you also see when you go to the link that I sent, that I put into the chat box. Okay, so before you click anything, just listen to these very brief instructions. This is the Polis platform. What you see in this rectangle here is what's called a card. It presents a statement. It could be a statement that I seeded into the conversation already, or it could be a statement that one of you wrote. And all you do with the statement is you either agree, as you can see in the green, or disagree in the red, or if you don't have a agree or disagree, you can pass. And here, pass or unsure. And then it'll give you another card with a new statement. And you do the same thing. Now, at any point in time, if there is something that you don't fully agree with, or something you don't fully disagree with, or something that a thought that inspires, you can add your own comment down in the box below. You can add it at any point in time. If I push agree or disagree on this card, but I want to add a comment about the card, I can do that in 5 minutes, even if I've gone through lots of cards in the meantime. You can always add any comment you want. The important thing about it, adding your comment, is make sure that it's a complete sentence, right? Not a one-word answer, a partial sentence, because other people are going to see that comment, and you want them to be able to understand what your comment is, right? So my comment might be, when I see this question, the US cannot be an effective broker in any Israeli-Palestinian peace process, I might say, I think the US has played an important role in negotiating in the past. You know, I might say that, or let's say negotiating between Israeli and Palestinian leadership in the past. So that might be my comment. I can could submit. I can do that before or after I agree or disagree with the card. Okay, and then we keep going. So we're going to run this for only about 5 minutes. And you'll see all of the information that this is going to generate. So have fun, go for it. Let me make sure it's live. We are ready to go. I think we are. And go ahead. If anyone has any problems, troubles, or anything like that, just let me know.
Like I see Indo is writing in the chat. I seem to be getting some questions repetitive.
Okay. So again, if you should be going to this link here, push on that link and it should get you to that front page where you can start to again, agree, disagree, pass to any of the cards that you see, and or add your own complete sentence comments in the write-in box at the bottom. And I see lots of people are, again, I'm getting comments here like depends on who I am talking to. That's not a useful comment because someone is going to say that and they're not going to know what you're talking about. So when you add your comments, make sure your comment is a complete and self-understandable statement. There's lots of, just so you all know, lots of comments coming through. This is great. So keep going. You'll see lots of comments to respond to, either to agree with, disagree with.
And answering Cynthia, who is saying I'm only able to respond to one page and cannot move forward to continue.
Yeah, there isn't any other page. If you just push agree or disagree, it'll give you a new card on the same page. I love that people are making reflections in the comment box. Sometimes it's not clear what you're reflecting though, so keep that in mind when you're writing your own comments. Make it very clear what you're talking about, if you're responding to something, what are you responding to?
Wow, what a comment.
A lot of great comments coming through, a lot of deep, rich, thought-provoking comments. So keep it going. We'll go for another couple minutes.
If you have statements that are repeating, perhaps you can just react to them once again, and in my experience, new ones are coming after. So even if some of them were repeating, you will still get new ones later after repeating your answers.
Just so you know, we have 70 active participants. There have been already about 1,500 votes or, agree, disagree. It's about 22 per participant. We've had 35 comments, so 438 now. Sorry, 85 comments. All right, we'll take one more minute. All right. So let's wrap it up. I'm going to have a report generated based on our conversation here, which it'll take a few minutes to generate, and then I'll show you what the back end is able to compile in terms of the data from this deliberation we had. I'd just like to maybe hear 2 or 3 comments on what that experience was like for you, and perhaps if you want to compare it and contrast to the experience of having, you know, Abir and Gali's live voices versus having, you know, this typed conversation. Are there 2 or 3 comments? All right. No, there aren't. Not a
Tara,
problem.
can I
Yes.
ask, are you asking for comments on the process and the software, or on our experience engaging with it?
Yeah. Yeah. What was it like to have this deliberation, this 5 minutes of communicating with each other using the software, and maybe in contrast to what it was like, you know, to be live in the room, and yeah, just some reflections on your experiences just now.
I needed to be able to put in more words and to specify what I was responding to. And when I thought I was doing that, it felt really engaging and exciting.
Okay. Yeah.
I found it quite frustrating to get the same statements again and again and again, and didn't really know what would matter if I responded this way or another. So I don't know whether that's because of the small number of people we had here or how that comes about.
Yeah, Naoma, I'm sorry for your experience. I don't quite know, and perhaps others also had the same experience. That's not typically what's supposed to happen. We had a pretty large number, 80 people. So, and over, let me just see, there were over 90 comments. So unless you went through 90 comments in the first minute or so, you shouldn't have had a repeats, and there might have been a glitch somehow in the system. Yeah, maybe one last comment if there is about the experience?
I felt it felt very rushed. I just felt like I was on beat the clock, and I just couldn't really settle into the process. So, but appreciate where you're going with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was deliberately, we weren't this is not a typical time frame. Let's just put it this way. For this kind of process, you could use an hour to go into this process, but we wanted to give you a small taste of this while leaving most of the time available for us to interact in real time in a more face-to-face way. All right. So what I'd like to do is I'm still the report is still not generating. So I'm gonna let's go back to the parking lot because we had a number of more questions there. And so let's
Maybe Tarek, I will just read one question from the chat from
Yeah.
not question but comment from Emily, saying she feels unclear with the final output or outcome or intention. Like, what was the final output or outcome or intention from doing this? I'm trying to.
Okay, well, I'll say the output is what I'm hoping to present to you. It'll be a report of all of the different comments and what are called like opinion spectra that can be developed, and it's quite impressive to look at. It hasn't been generated yet. It's still being crunched in the back, behind the scenes. The intention was for you to experience a digital deliberation platform in a quick way, so you understand why we're excited about using technology to be able to take what we've did in depth in Geneva, right, where we can have 10 people talk over 70, 80 hours engaged with each other. Now, how do we do that with thousands of people, right? And so, of course, there's trade-offs, but the idea is that we could do both. We can both have breadth and depth using different approaches to try to bring about social change. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Avi, I see a hand raised. Okay, maybe we lost Avi. Okay.
Yes,
So
sorry, it took me a moment to unmute. Just wanted to give some appreciative feedback because I heard a lot of people that were dissatisfied. So I wanted to share something that I enjoyed, which was the anonymity. I enjoyed that I could write something without having my name or face attached to it and just see it, like have it be part of what is like the common pool of things. And also I enjoyed to read things that I also believe in, written by other people. It was kind of a delightful surprise, like, oh, cool, I believe in that too. So I like that, and also seeing like I enjoyed to read what people want, or what they feel or they're worried about. Rather, and the blank statements were harder for me to relate to.
yeah. Thanks, Avi. Yeah, some of what you said is a very maybe if we're used to being able to have NVC mediated conversations, those feel incredibly more satisfying. Many people engage on this topic solely online or in very high sort of stress in-person conversations. And so for them to have to be taken away from emojis and account names and the imagery that's often passed around when these conversations are being had, and to just have very simple, very anonymous, sanitized font where all you're getting at is the letters that constitute certain ideas. That can be a much safer kind of conversation for them compared to what they're used to. And that's part of the idea when we're dealing with kind of mainstream deliberations. All right, let's turn to some of the questions, just a couple. In the meantime, we won't get to all of them that we had from prior. I'll say real quick, that was Polis, pol.is. I'll put the link in the chat. Remesh is the one we're working on, and I'll put the link to that as well. So here's another question that was raised. How do we create different governments if unfortunately they've been democratically voted on by the people? Gali and Abir, do you want to take that?
Sure. That was actually one of the things we did discuss. And that is why our plan is holistic, and that's why we also discuss how to prepare the public for peace. And this is something very important. The public needs to go through a specific process in order to be able to change that. Now it's tricky. It's not easy. That's a very good question. It's something that took us a long time discussing together. But that's why we did try to think of everything that would lead to the people voting for a government that is more working towards justice and peace. Gali, I think you
I can just
wanted to add
add
something.
that if we're talking about democratic governments, I think we can also put it in the bigger perspective of the current situation that we see now all across the world of how democratic governments are turning more and more right wing. I think it's a national phenomenon. I don't think it's specifically to Israel and Palestine. Currently in Israel, it's the most right-wing government we've ever seen, but it's the same thing in some countries in Europe and in the United States. So I think when you put it in the bigger picture, you understand there's a bigger issue here than whether the people are choosing democratic candidates or not. It's we're part of this movement now that it's important to recognize.
I want to highlight a next question. This is the question is today, NVC from Iran. I want to thank you both for speaking about your perspectives tonight as an activist and facilitator of nonviolent communication in Iran. I'd like to know what messages you have for the people of Iran. I'm connected with a large group of people and would love to convey your words to them. At the same time, I want to recognize any responsibility and my responsibility and strive for it, taking even small steps towards this dream of peace. Abir or Gali?
Yeah, I wrote an answer in the document, but I'll be brief. First of all, it's really great to read comments like this, both seeing your commitment to what you do and also thinking that we can do something together. Basically, to be honest, the Phoenix Plan focuses, as we mentioned, on the Israel-Palestinian context, but it does recognize the interconnected role of regional and international communities in fostering peace and justice. And that can be the part, because we believe that by sharing stories that build connections, amplifying calls for justice, fostering dialogue between communities, we can help strengthen regional cooperation. By spreading awareness of peace-building principles and supporting nonviolent solutions, everything you're doing, basically, that contributes to the vision of justice and dignity for all. So we would, to be honest, appreciate further engaging on this. We'll be happy to come up with something relevant as a group for you to continue the discussion and ways of collaboration.
Great. Do you have anything, Gali, for the people of Iran that you want to share?
Wow, I read it, and what crossed my mind was a sentence of Maoz Innon. Some of you probably know him. He's an Israeli activist who lost both of his parents on October 7th, and he keep talking about how hope is an action. And I read this message, and I was like, I'm gonna be ridiculously optimist and be like, so currently we're talking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but I want to believe that one day it will expand to other countries in the Middle East and to Iran. I mean, why not? Why is it a curse now to be optimistic and hopeful? I think where we at now, being hopeful and optimistic, it's a moral decision that I think we should all take. We can, and I think maybe we should. And it's so heartwarming and amazing to read that. And thank you. And I hope we can find a way to work together on this.
Okay. Next question. So I put it in the chat. What about a one-state solution? Wouldn't this be more consistent with the stated goal of a land with equal rights for all?
I can quickly jump on that. So we're not saying no to one-state solution. That was the question, right? One-state solution. What we're saying is right now we understand that the most urgent need is for Palestine to be self-governed. Palestine needs its independence right now. So that's why we call it first step, 2 states. The first step is 2 states. In the future, we aspire to maybe have some sort of one state in the future, but we understand in order to get there, we have to start with the division in order for us maybe in the future to come back together. Abir, if you have anything to add on that.
Okay.
Guess not.
I'm going to put the next question in the chat. You said initiatives should not be imposed from the outside world. While the document was written by few Israelis and Palestinians, you said you're now looking for support within the U.S. political system and various international organizations. What about for the support for this plan by the people who would actually need to agree to it, meaning the majority of people in Israel and Palestine?
A great and scary question. Abir, I'm going to need your help on that. I can say that it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's hard and it's scary, and I think that's the reason we kind of waited a bit longer with publishing this plan in Israel and Palestine. We see the situation here now. We understand, and I think we all understand it. I think we all understand the anger and the fear and the fact that it's going to be much harder to convince the people that it's going to actually affect. I think, again, it comes back to the fifth area of opportunity of our plan is how to prepare the public for this kind of process. How do we even start to talk about these ideas in a situation right now where you can't even say the word peace? People are very hurt, everyone from every side. People have lost, almost every single one of the people living here, both Israelis and Palestinian, lost someone close. But we understand that it's going to be hard, but it's something that we're willing to put in the effort and to put in the energy. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We acknowledge the difficulty in this part. This is a very good question because it's really something that we also asked ourselves on how that should be done. What can we do in order to reach that? And the whole idea of, just to make it clear, for us, it was seeking international and US support. It's not about, let's say, imposing an external agenda, which is what we don't want. It's more about leveraging the global influence to support grassroots efforts like ours and uphold justice. And this is where the plan puts a bigger priority on local ownership, on legitimacy, on aiming to foster widespread support among Palestinians and Israelis through dialogue, through education, through transparency. We do discuss how to do that more grassroots, from the bottom, ground up. We think that true success, let's say, on this initiative really depends on the will of the people, as mentioned. So that's why the plan is designed as, if I may say, as a foundation for collective action, not a top-down mandate. So we're aware of the role of everyone. We're going to put the greater focus on the people, on our people, because that is the most difficult and that is the most important.
I can add one more sentence that just crossed. I mean, I had it now when you talked, is that we always say that from the river to the sea, we all have PTSD. And I think especially when talking about this topic of how do we even start to present this this plan to our people, to my people, to everyone, is the understanding that we all suffer, and we can use the tool that Abir and I used in order to communicate on a grander scale, whether it's nonviolent communication. There are ways for us to communicate that haven't been tried yet in a very populistic-led environment that we think can help in this situation.
All right, so we are at the time that we wanted to close. Unfortunately, it looks like the report still hasn't generated. So what I'm going to do with the report is make sure that it gets sent out to all of you who have registered. It'll just be a link. It'll show up. I'm going to just very briefly show you a report from a past if you don't mind, let me do that very quickly. Okay, so just so you see, this is what it's going to look like. And you'll see here, we'll give you basics data on the conversation. How divisive was the conversation? So you'll see the variety of questions. Where did they lie on a consensus spectrum from the most divisive? Again, this was a different conversation. You can see a comment here was Zionism should only be evaluated in terms of its material impact, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and then there's lots more to explore in this back-end report about all the conversations that were had. How many, which statements enjoyed consensus, which didn't, what were the kind of opinion groups that formed in the assembly of all the statements, where was areas of opportunity. And if you want to get really nerdy on this, there's a whole kinds of mapping the geospace of public opinion that you can look into. So we'll send that report out and you can all see how your own conversation looked like in the 5 minutes of deliberation that we had. Before we close, we have a call to action, and we're going to have Caroline kick that off for us. And this is responsive to a number of the questions that we didn't get to about what can you do. So this is in response to that. And the other questions that we didn't get to, I regret we weren't able to get to all of them. Caroline, take us to our call to action.
Great, thank you so much. Well, I thank all of you for taking the time really today to spend this hour and a half speaking with us and to listen to us share the Phoenix Plan and the ideas and the visions within them. Our first request is to review the plan, for each one of you to read the plan. Take note of where you fit in or entities that you know that fit into our plan. And please connect with us. We'd love to continue the engagement. We'd love to hear your feedback. I will also put I'll put my email in the chat. My email is very easy, but very long. Executive Director at newstoryleadership.org. I'll put that in the chat in a minute. So we ask you please to read the plan, visit our website, newstoryleadership.org. All the information is there. Any way that you can work with us, you can donate on the website. If you are interested in hosting us for a speaking engagement, we want to really build a base of support in government and civil society. So thank you very much. Goni.
Yeah. First of all, I also want to thank all of you for speaking here today. An NVC Rising call to action is having you join us in an in-person training we are conducting in about 4 months from now in Spain. Tarek is going to be there as part of the leading facilitators, and it's called Rising for Life. It's a training that will be held in the spirit of nonviolent communication and will be opening and questioning what nonviolence is inside and outside of us. And I also put the link to more information about this training in the chat. And I move it to you, Tarek.
Thank you, Goni. I want to riff off of what Caroline said and also say that the Phoenix Plan is a evolving living document. So we're on the 2nd revision, which we made after there was an escalation of the fighting into Lebanon and Iran, for that matter. And we anticipate continuing to make revisions. And if you'd like to give us feedback, ideas, as I mentioned, references to existing and other projects, case studies, we'll look at those and consider incorporating them into future revisions. And then the call to action that I would have is, if any of this tickled you, the digital piece, if you saw something that might be useful in your own work, if you just want to find out more, I do think that these are powerful technologies, and it would be a shame if they only went towards promoting violence and conflict. and we didn't leverage them for building cohesion and peace building. So if you have any interest, then please take a look. I put the websites for the Council on Technology and Social Cohesion. They've got meetings, they've got resources. Polis and Remesh, the websites are there as well. But they are just the two of dozens and dozens of new emerging technologies out there to be able to bring people together. And the Alliance for Peace Building, which endorsed the Phoenix Plan, which is the biggest peace building association, also has a digital peace building community of practice. You can go to their website and sign up for announcements to join that as well. With that, I think we've come to our end. I want to thank everyone for your time. It's really encouraging. I think I'll say this on behalf of the whole Phoenix team. It's really encouraging to have 80 people show up on a Sunday and provide us with the gift of your attention, your curiosity, your interest, your questions, your skepticism. All of it means you're engaged. There's something about this and the work that we're doing that interests you, and I hope that this has contributed to your thinking and whatever work that you are doing, and we thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tarek. Thank you, Gali. Thank you, Abir. Thank you,
Well,
Caroline.
for listening to us. It means a lot.
And I want to just appreciate again the New Story Leadership Program. One piece that I didn't mention in the beginning, and I think it might be nice to close with it, is that my friend Mana, who was my roommate at DC, that took part of NSL together with me and shared the room with me, actually sent me the email that led me to my first nonviolent communication training, where I met Roberta Wall and where I met Tarek. So it was not it's thanks to NSL, to the New Story Leadership, that I personally got to introduce to nonviolent communication, and this led me to be part of the co-founders of NVC Rising. So thank you, NSL, for being part of the initiation of NVC Rising. And we're going to close. Stacey, I see that you are raising your hand, and I guess you want to say something before we leave.
Thank you. I couldn't be happier to see you all together, and just wanted to say, basically, Caroline, I look forward to talking to you. I helped start NSL in 2009 when I lived in DC. So through like Dan Shapiro and Ira Weiss and all those people. So
Oh my goodness.
I'm so like, my heart is bursting to see this kind of a group get together. You know, it just really, anyway, thank you so much. It's just brilliant. All of your work. I'm 100% supportive.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks from the board of directors for all of your work to get NSL started. Ira is still very much involved, and Dan we're working with as well. So thank you for your vision. We are trying to carry it forward from just a summer program to advocacy and activism. So thank you very much.
New York. Come to New York. We'll help you from New York. Okay.
We want to do that too.
Yeah, okay, we're ready. Here's the open. We're ready.
Thanks, Stacey. And thanks, Goni, for hosting this.
Thank you so much for being here. And one last quick technical note is that we are recording this, and the recording will be sent to all of you, and we really encourage you to share the recording with other people and have them share the recording with other people. So thank you so much for being here, and I welcome you also to unmute and say goodbye in your language. There we have many languages on this call, as we saw in the beginning. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you in one of our future events.
To peace.
Yes.
Thank you.
To peace. Thank you. Thank you.
Shalom. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ma salame. Jim, I also see your hand raised. And then,
Oh, I saw Jim's hand was up, but he lowered. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a great day.